Hi, my name is Anne Brady and I welcome you to our Mentoring Writers Resource Box podcast. Listen to learn more about the writing world. After all, the more you learn, the better writer you can become. Many writers begin to think about writing a children's book at some point. Some decide writing kids' books is for them, whilst others want a change of genre and style. Perhaps it's because they remember how they loved reading books as a child. But usually it's because they realise that writing books for children opens doors for children. Being able to write books for children helps them to think in new and different ways. But often an author will write a children's book because they just know that the right book at the right time will help a lonely child feel less alone. Over the past years that I have been mentoring and working with writers of all ages, but also due to my writing my own series of children's storybooks, I've learnt a great deal about children's books. Most writers are delightful people. They are talented and capable in their ability to use language to express great meaning. But somewhere along the line, I know that I will encounter those writers who appear to have some misconceptions, to make mistakes, ones I see time and time again. This means I'll be spending some of the mentoring time given to these writers in helping them to discover and learn how to avoid and correct the mistakes they are inadvertently making. With that in mind, I thought that I would talk today to those of you who are wanting to write a children's book and ask you to give some serious thought about the misconceptions that you could come across. But I would also like you to take note before you begin writing of what you need to do to make sure you don't make those mistakes. Let's get started. We'll start with cluelessness. So the misconception here is, I know I haven't read a children's book in years, but honestly, aren't they just short, simple stories? I mean, how hard can it be to write one? Whoa now, that is quite a statement to make. Well, the answer isn't yes, that's for sure. In reality, writing a children's book is no easier than writing one for adults. The books for older children still demand all the elements that adult books do. That is, strong characterizations, fresh exciting plots, lots of action and, most definitely, clear and precise language. Of course, I haven't yet mentioned that the writer must have the ability to view the world through the eyes, mind and heart of a child. Now, many writers believe that picture books, which are shorter and may well appear deceptively simple, are still one of the most difficult art forms to master. A well-written picture book is a work of art that requires, nay, it demands, an intuitive sense of child appeal. And, of course, like poetry, a firm command of the language. The kind of book that appeals to a 3-year-old is certainly different from one that a 10 to 14-year-old would read. Books for children and teens come in many formats, so it's crucial that the writer understands the basis of all children's books. You have to know the various categories, the formats, and most importantly, you should have read widely in the category you aim to write for. So ask yourself, would your story work best as a picture book, an easy reader, an early chapter book, or a middle grade novel? Knowing and understanding the conventions and requirements of each format before you begin will save copious amounts of time when it comes to revising. And although these categories may be fluid, with the age levels being indicative rather than definitive, these are the standards devised and currently used by the publishing industry, librarians, educators and reviewers. So let's look at the major categories. We have baby or toddler books. These are ages 0 to 3. As a child's first book, it comes in all shapes and sizes. They usually have very few words per page. Now, unless you are an artist or have a brilliant idea which hasn't yet been produced, believe you me, this market is hard to crack. So I wish you luck if you're going to try this. The next stage is picture books, usually from the ages of about 2 up to 7 or 8. Obviously, we do have different levels of reading in the latter age group. Text and pictures work really well together in telling a story. Picture books appear deceptively simple, but the best ones are beautiful, compact works of art that work on many levels. They will help children grow emotionally and psychologically. A few picture books have no words at all, thus allowing the pictures, and only the pictures, to tell the story. Most are no longer than 1,000 words. The average size of a picture book is 32 pages long, which includes the 4 cover pages. Work that one out if you can. For the uninitiated, that is front cover and plain inner, plus back cover and plain inner, i.e. 4 print pages. As an author, I have written a number of PBs. They are all full of colourful illustrations which complement the words of the story, and each story has an underlining message that children can relate to. Then we have easy readers, these for ages 4 to 7. These are aimed at beginner readers. These books have limited vocabulary, large typeface, some simple sentence structure, repetition, and of course, pictures which give clues to the words in order to help children learn to read alone. Next we have chapter books. These are ages 6 to 9. Chapter books are a little longer and certainly more difficult. These bridge the gap between easy readers and middle grade novels, telling the story primarily through prose rather than pictures. Often pictures are not included, although some chapter books may have black and white images scattered throughout the book to break up the wording. Note, I said black and white images. You will rarely find colour illustrations, although it is not impossible. This is usually due to the cost of printing. One such book with colour images is My Family by Leah Proctor, a 13-year-old writer who won a commendation from Winchester University for her work. It is the story of her family who she placed as witches, ghouls, ghosts, zombies, etc., and it's very amusing. The images in it are colour, but they are one-off mini images. They're not full scenes. Then we have middle grade books, ages 8 to 12. Written for kids whose reading skills are competent. These novels vary in length, subject matter and style. However, they should also have all the attributes of novels for adults, without adult content, of course. The biggest difference is that the main characters are usually children. Realistic fiction, fantasy, mysteries and historical fiction are all popular with middle grade readers, hence Harry Potter being so famous. Young adult, age 13 to 18. Contemporary books for young adult readers are more sophisticated in style and subject matter. They often deal with the problems, questions and issues that concern teens within our times. Our next misconception is preachiness. That's a good word, preachiness. The misconception is, as an adult, I have a lot more experience and I know a lot more than my child readers do. I want to use my children's book to teach children and to explain good behaviour. Oh, now come on. No one likes being preached to, and kids who are preached to enough already really do not like it. As with most readers, kids want books with strong characters and exciting plots. Whilst the best children's books usually have a theme or a message, that message is shown through the actions and reactions of the characters in response to the plot. In other words, through a good, strong story. Those writers who believe that dictating or writing down to kids has a place in their book should reconsider and should look at the words of the New York writer E.B. White, author of Charlotte's Web and other children's classics. He stated, "Anyone who writes down to children is simply wasting their time. You have to write up, not down." Children can be very demanding. They are the most attentive, curious, eager, observant, sensitive, quick, and generally congenial readers on this planet. Now that was certainly true when White wrote his books, and it is still true to this day. The misconception of stereotypes. The misconception here is, kids are all much the same, aren't they? I haven't talked to one in years, but they seem pretty straightforward. Why? Open your mind, please, folks, especially if you are not a parent. Kids are quite switched on these days, so if you are writing for children and young adults, then your most important characters will be kids or teenagers. Although in some cases, they could be bunnies, puppies, witches, ghosts, dragons, most of which are actually substitutes for kids. In general, children like to read about characters who are their age or slightly older. So if you are writing a story for, say, 9 to 12-year-olds, then your main character will probably be 12 or 13. And if you are writing for teenagers, then your main character will usually be about 16 or older. The question, though, is how does an adult writer create a realistic child or teenage character? Well, you will need many of the same skills that writers of adult fiction need. You must have the ability to empathise, have an understanding of and curiosity about human nature. In addition, you will need to draw on your own childhood memories, plus your observations and understanding of contemporary kids. There is nothing better than sitting and watching children play and interact with each other. As Somerset Maugham once said, you can never know enough about your characters. Let's say you have decided to write about a 12-year-old girl named Sally. You know that she has curly blonde hair, green eyes and a crooked smile. Forgive me for this, I had to do it this way. But knowing your character has to mean more than just knowing her name, age and what she looks like. You also need to know who her parents are. Does she have brothers and sisters? Is she shy or outgoing? Does she have a best friend, or is she a lonely child? What about her school grades? Are they good or bad? Does she struggle in school? What are her favourite books, TV shows, food, sports, and what kind of clothes does she wear? Plus, what does her room look like? Hang on, don't we have to know all this when writing characters for adult fiction? Of course we do. It is only through the process of asking and answering all these questions and others like them that you will get to know about your main character. In fact, about all your characters. One of the resources we have at Mentoring Writers is the Character Cheat Sheet. It helps you know what to collate regarding your characters, no matter what genre or what age group you are writing for. And actually, no matter what type of character they are, animal, mineral or human. Of course, there are lots of other questions, such as, what is it in your character's background or personality that makes them act the way they do? Let's say 12-year-old Johnny has always been an A student, but suddenly he's failing his maths. Why? Is it because he hates his maths teacher? Are his parents getting divorced? Or has he suddenly developed a crush on the girl sitting next to him in the maths class? Remember, you're the writer. It's up to you to understand your main character and provide sufficient information and motivation so that his or her actions will seem logical and believable. In fact, this applies to all your characters who are relevant to the story. Now, one way to do this is to use the same techniques that actors do when playing a part. If you want to show your character is angry, try to recall a situation where you felt anger. Tap into those emotions, see what feelings you have, and write them down. Whilst the situation may not be the same, the emotions you felt will be. And because of it, you will create characters who resonate emotionally with your readers. Now, what about POV confusion? The misconception here is, point of view? What does that have to do with kids' books? Well, I have to say that I am constantly surprised by how many of my mentees still don't understand the concept of point of view as it applies to fiction. When writing for kids, understanding how the various POV choices work is crucial. When you are able to put yourself inside your middle grade or YA character in either the first person or third person's limited point of view, that is when you will really allow your readers to see the world through your character's eyes, mind and heart. And you will have gone a long way toward capturing and holding their attention. In the past, most children's books, indeed most books in general, would use an awareness, an omniscient point of view in which the story is told by a voice that separates it from the characters. It remained outside the story, knowing everything about the characters and the events of the story. While picture books are still often told in an omniscient voice, books for older kids and YAs usually use either the first person or third person limited point of view. Remember, when you write in the first person, it is you who is telling the story, but in the voice of one of your characters. Usually, but not always, the main character. So, if, for example, I am telling the story of 13-year-old Jack in the first person from Jack's viewpoint, I might write, "When I left school that afternoon, I had no clue what was waiting for me at home." If, however, I choose instead to tell Jack's story from the third person limited, I would write, "When Jack left school that afternoon, he had no idea what was waiting for him at home." In both cases, we are seeing the world from the perspective of the main character, and so we feel an immediate connection to that character. An advantage of the first person and third person limited is that they create a sense of connection to the narrator, and thus a direct and intimate connection between the reader and the writer. Readers, especially older kids and YA readers, are then able to identify strongly with the main character and are able to care deeply about what will happen to him or her. Many authors opt to tell a story from more than one character's first person or third person limited POV. But whichever you choose, it is important to make sure the transitions between viewpoint characters are clearly delineated, usually by alternating chapters or larger parts of the story. This will avoid abrupt shifts in viewpoint or head-hopping, which can be jarring and confusing to readers. However, I will say that some contemporary authors do use omniscient POV, but usually have created a strong omniscient voice that acts almost as a character in itself. I think an example is the narrator in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, but I'll leave you to look that one up. I can ignore suspense. Now, for the misconception here, we look at conflict, suspense, tension. I know mystery stories and crime novels need those things, but in children's books, are they necessary? Tell me, does the tale of Peter Rabbit and the Cat in the Hat have conflict and suspense? Well, yes, they sure as hell do. And that's why kids have been happily turning the pages of those books for decades. For a start, Peter is in conflict with Farmer McGregor, and also at times with his mom, as well as with himself. The suspense and tension comes from wondering if Peter will be caught stealing the vegetables from Farmer McGregor's garden, and will he be put into a pie like his father? With the Cat in the Hat, the conflict is between the cat and the two children. The suspense in this book comes from watching the cat wreak havoc on the children's home. Readers are left wondering how they will ever get the mess cleaned up before their mother comes back. Cute animals and rhyming verse may play a part in your tale, but they don't take the place of a real story complete with suspense, tension, and an actual plot. Readers need characters they can care about, and they must have reasons to worry about them. That's what keeps them turning the pages. Children need these too. Conflict provides the reasons to worry. So give your characters problems, get them into trouble, then have them set about solving those problems and getting out of trouble. In books for kids, it's important to hook your readers right away by introducing the central conflict early in the story. Then you need to keep them hooked by showing your characters struggling throughout the story as they try to solve the problem and/or achieve their goal. It's also important to avoid a power play in the form of a parent, teacher or helpful adult who steps in to save the day. In fact, it should be the main character who solves the problem, even if that character is a 3-year-old child or a teeny-weeny mouse. Creating strong characters, finding the right voice, coming up with a workable plot. These are not easy tasks. That road from initial conception to a publishable story is usually long, winding, and full of potholes and pitfalls. But when you hear from a child that he or she loved a book and wants to read more, or that one of your books has made a child, any child, feel less alone, you will know that your journey has been more than worth it. And finally, here are a few simple tips for children's book writers. If you want to write an awesome, amazing, splendid, really good children's book, let the rumpus begin. I think what I'm trying to say is the world is your oyster. Open up your mind and go for creating something wonderful. Read widely in the format and age level you hope to engage readers in. Spend time with kids close to the age you hope to write for. Talk to them about their lives, their families, relationships, their hopes, dreams, frustrations, and also their accomplishments. To get a sense of which POV would work best for you and a sense of the voices of your characters, try the following exercise. Write a scene with 2 or more child characters, using either first-person or third-person limited POV. Then rewrite the scene from the other character's first or third-person POV. See which suits the scene better. You might find it's the start of a new story. Give an old story a new twist by choosing an antagonist as your viewpoint character, as in, say, The True Story of the Big Bad Wolf by John Sizaker. Or try modernising an old tale, as in The Principal's New Clothes by Stephanie Clemenson. Or maybe The Chocolate Touch by Patrick Skane-Catlin. In other words, take any old story and try rewriting it in a modern format. Trust me, it won't be as easy as you think. For picture books, think visually. You don't need to be an artist. Besides, if you become traditionally published, then your publisher will find an artist for you. And if not, there are some good illustrators out there. Look for recommendations or ask us. What you do need to do is to plan your story so the pictures work with the text. Remember, in a picture book, images tell 50% of the story. You might even try designing a story in which the pictures tell a different story from the text, as in Rosie's Walk by Pat Hutchins or Officer Buckle and Gloria by Peggy Rathbone. Remember that books for older children demand all the elements as those for adults. They need strong characterizations, fresh, exciting plots, lots of action and clear, precise language. Many people think that because picture books are short, they must be easy, but in reality, the picture book is one of the most difficult formats to master. And that's it. Writing is a journey, no matter what genre you try. And to be honest, I think you should try writing for children at least once. After all, you could use a pen name if you wanted, or at the very least, you could try it and send it to us for reviewing. In the meantime, if you need help with your writing, then check out our website, where we offer a variety of workshops, resources, podcasts and other services, all geared to helping any writer along their writing journey. Or email us, contact@mentoringwriters.co.uk, and we will endeavour to assist you. Good luck with making your kids' books the best they can be. This was Anne Brady bringing you a Mentoring Writers Resource Box podcast. Thank you for listening, and we hope you will join us again.